Hey everybody, so today we're going to be taking a look at how to rework our knockback system so that it's using something called a tweening node, which makes the knockback look a little bit better because it's not linear like it was before. So let's dive right in. Getting right into it, what we're going to be looking at today is a new way to do knockback. It's not necessary, especially if you feel like your knockback is finally at a place where it's working well, but by far the most frequently asked question that I get on either my YouTube comments or in Discord is that the knockback is working strangely, differently than would be expected. So we're going to break the knockback effect off into its own script, refactor for that, and then on top of doing that, we're also going to use a tweening module in order to make the knockback look a little more, juicy or a little more like what you'd expect. So let's jump right in here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to my my scripts here, my reusable components, and I want to make a new C# script. Actually, I don't think I need to. I think instead I should just sorry, there we go. So in our scripts under game stuff, we already have a script for knockback, so it's kind of already broken off into its own thing. However, it is doing too much stuff, so we're going to fix that right now and make it so that it just functions to knock things back. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio here. I didn't have it open already, so it's going to take a minute, and I'll meet you guys back here as soon as that happens. Okay, so here we are inside of our knockback. So currently, our knockback has a thrust, which is like an amount of force that it's giving, an amount of time that the player should be knocked back, and an amount of damage to do. We don't need to be doing damage in here since we created our generic damage script last time. We do, however, still need to be focusing on the amount of thrust, which is how much knockback to give, and the amount of time that they should be knocked back. Now, in our onTriggerEnter2D, collider2D other, we're checking to see if the other is breakable. Then we're going to call the smash. Instead of doing it this way, and in another, I think 2 more videos, we're going to take a look at how to use that health system. So we won't need to use this to smash the pots anymore. So I'm actually just going to comment it out for now. So again, to comment out a section, it's \**, and then at the end, catch the asterisk and another \\\. It would help if I could, there we go. Now we also, similar to how we did the damage, let's add a tag here that we're going to use. And again, we're going to keep this closed for modifications. So this is going to be a serialized field, and this is going to be a private string, and I'll just call this, I forget what I called it last time, I'm just going to call it other tag. That's fine. And then I'm also going to change the knock time and the thrust to be serialized fields as well to follow that solid design principle. So it's serialized field private, knock time, and serialized field private, and then thrust. Okay. All right. So onTriggerEnter2D, collider other. If other.gameObject.compareTag, instead of looking for enemy, we're instead going to look for the other tag. And then now we don't have to have this or looking for player, so we can get rid of that as well. Pardon me, rigid body hit is other.getComponent rigid body if hit is not null. Vector 2 difference, so we're finding the difference between the two, and then we're adding force. If it's enemy, then we're going to change the state to stagger and do the knock coroutine, but now we're not going to pass in that damage anymore. It's just going to be hit and knock time. Oh, so I need to look at the enemy script and remove the damage component from that. And then if other.gameObject.compareTag player, it's weird that I did this that way. Okay. So we want to do the player movement and set it into stagger, and then we want to do the knock, and we're not going to do the damage to that. So let's open up the enemy script, and let's also open up the player movement script, and let's modify those so that they work with how we're changing this. So in the player scripts, we've got the player movement, and then in the enemy stuff, we've got the base enemy script. Alright, take damage, make loot, death effect, knock. So we want knock to only take the time and not the damage. And we don't want to do this take damage. Damage from here, we're going to be doing that from the health system. And there's a lot more that we have to do to actually incorporate this. So this is kind of just a rough idea here. If you want to try and take this on your own and complete some of the stuff that we're going to be doing later, then that's more than okay. I'm just kind of starting stuff out here. So we've got the rigid body knock time. Okay, cool. So that's still giving the knockback effect. Now in the player movement here, attack, second attack, raise item, update animation, knock. Okay, and we don't want to take in the damage anymore because we're not using that. We're just using the time. So am I really even using the thrust at all then, if I'm just using the time? So hit, get component. So hit is the rigid body, right? Huh. It's weird that I'm doing that two different ways here. I don't know. This is what happens when you work on a project for like a year. You forget how you're doing stuff. So I don't need the thrust, I just need the knock time. Unless that just broke something, and it looks like it did. Oh, no, I do need the thrust, because we're contemplating that up there. Alright, I'm not contemplating, calculating that right here. The difference is the difference dot normalized times thrust. Alright, so we're going to save this player movement as well, and enemy as well. Okay, what I want to do is I'm going to use my little damage test here, and I'm going to attach a knockback to it, and we're going to see if it works. And after we do that, we're going to look at using a tweening module to do this. So my little damage test object that I created last time, game stuff, knockback. Let's see, I'm going to give this a thrust of 2 and a knock time of 0.3 and another tag of player. Alright, so let's play, and let's see what happens when our player walks right into it. They should take damage and be knocked back. So there we go. Meow, 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 meow. Cool. And I haven't hooked up the health correctly yet. This is a work in progress. I appreciate you guys for being so awesome working with me on this. This is a work in progress. Alright, so we got our little bit of knockback there. Now we can make the thrust bigger or the knock time bigger so that it would seem like it would work more. Now, how we can make this work differently. I already have DOTween in this project due to something that I was working on with the Patreon, and I'm using the same project for Patreon as I am for YouTube. But in Patreon we made moving boxes using DOTween, and we're going to do something similar with DOTween for the knockback. It's just a different way that we can do the knockback here. So what you want to do, DOTween is free. If you go to the asset store, there's another tweening engine that's free. I think it's called iTween. I don't have any experience with iTween, so I couldn't tell you which one's better. I just have worked with DOTween before, and so I know that it works. That's what this demi-giant folder here is from. So if you search for assets, DOTween, and then there's no reason for you to use DOTween Pro for what we're doing here. We don't need the Pro features. It's free. You can add to your assets and import. I believe I currently have it imported, but I'll import it again anyway. And it takes a minute for all the scripts to compile. That's what this, I think I already said, that's what this demi-giant folder is, but I'll wait for that to finish and I'll meet you back here in a moment. Okay, So you need to set up DOTween. So we're going to open the DOTween utility panel, click Setup DOTween. It's going to wait a second, and then you need to apply it to what you want DOTween to be able to manipulate: UI, sprites, physics, physics 2D, and audio. So I'm going to wait for that to compile really quickly, and then we'll hit apply. And then we'll be able to look at how we can use this to make our knockback look a little bit better. All right, so there we go. Now if we go back into our script here, I'm going to take a look at the knockback. Actually, I instead want to look at the player movement first. So we're going to be looking at the player's knockback here. In order to use DOTween, we need to add a using statement. So we're going to do using DOTweening, which will give us access to DemiGiant's tweening library. In our knockback here, wherever it is, there we go. So in our knockback coroutine, we have our time. Oh, okay. This is fine then. It is the knockback that we can apply it. So hit.addForce. There we go. So instead of doing hit.addForce, what we're going to do is we're going to say hit.do. Oh, okay. We need to add the tweening library here as well. So we're going to do using dg.tweening, and then instead of hit.addForce, we're going to do hit.doMove, and then we have to give it a where we want to move it to, and how long we want it to take, and whether or not we want it to be snapped. And we're going to turn snapping off. Snapping just means you're going to round to integer values. So we're going to do hit.doMove. So difference is transform.position. Difference equals difference normalized. So hit.transform.position plus difference. And then the amount of time it's going to take is the knock time. And then this should be vector 3 because it requires a vector 3 to work. So we're going to save that. And let's see if this looks any better. Okay. It's going to compile for a second. Alright, so one thing you'll notice is a don't surround load will appear as soon as you invoke a tweening node. That actually looks a little bit better, I think. Meow. Meow. I think it's only working with the physics one though. So if other.gameObject.compare tag, other tag, oh, okay, and we want to make sure it's the trigger. Other.gameObject.is trigger. Nope. Oh, other.is trigger. There we go. Let's save that, and then back here. All right, it's gonna think for a second. Tag is null or empty. Damage test. Where is that from? Knockback line 21. Other.gameObject.compare tag, other tag. And other tag is there. Did, for some reason, did the tag come off of my player health? Nope, still capital P player. Still got the box collider. That's weird. Oh, okay, so that's what the issue is. The issue is the rigid body that is not attached to the game object that we're looking at. So since I'm going to have the hurtbox be in a child object, I'm going to do other.getComponent in parent, so that we're getting the component from the parent and not from that exact object. So here's what the issue is, in case you didn't catch that. Our player health right here, which is where we have our box collider that's acting as our hurt box, along with our player health script. This object doesn't have the rigid body on it. The rigid body is instead on the player, which is the parent object. So instead of using rigid body 2D hit equals other get component, we're going to use get component in parent. And there's only one in the parent, so that's going to be fine. It means that we're going to have to refigure this the same way for the enemy, which we're getting to make it work the way we want to. So I'm going to save that really quickly. Player movement doesn't need to have the using dg.tweening anymore. So we'll save that. And let's go back into Unity here, and let's try this out. Now, one thing that I've had an issue with before, and last time I tried this I didn't have an issue, but then some of my patrons had said that they were still having a similar problem. Null reference exception. Where is that coming from? On trigger enter 2D. Oh, I want to go back and make sure that I want to compare tag and make sure it's the trigger. So, and other dot is trigger. Alright, there we go. So back in here, one issue that I was having before, that some patrons were having, is that using a tween like this might cause your, when you're getting knocked back, to knock into something in the level. So I just want to test that really fast here. So if I, okay, so we're not interfering with anything that we're not supposed to be interfering with, so that's good. All right, cool. Now that null reference exception error. So knockback line 37. Oh, and so we want to do get component in parent for this as well. Get component in parent. There we go. And hit that get component in parent. No, this doesn't need to be in parent. It's because the hit is the rigid body. And get component in parent. All right, cool. So let's try this now. Let's make sure everything is working like it should be. We're gonna have to change this for, so like, it doesn't make any sense to me why since we're essentially doing the same thing, we're doing the knock and we're doing the other thing. I don't know why I did it this way. So for now, I'm even just going to comment this whole section out. Somebody had commented that I probably hurt some people's understanding of programming, and I totally understand that. If you feel like my ineptitude in this, or my trouble making things work the way that I want them to, has damaged your ability to understand anything, I apologize, and I understand why you think that way. We also don't need to do this player, because ideally we're going to go back and rename the version in enemy to be the same. And let's actually do that right now. So other.gameObject compare tag other tag. So we're checking to see if it's the player or the enemy, and it's the trigger one. So we're getting the component in parent, which means we're going to need to move the hurt box from the enemies to a child object. If hit isn't null, then we're calculating the difference, and then we're moving in that direction. If other.getComponent in parent player movement.current state is not equal to stagger, then we want to set the current state to stagger. Now we can do the same thing with the state, is we can have that be a separate state machine. That way we can have this work for both enemies and players. Other.getComponent in player movement knock. Okay, so I'm actually going to leave this alone for now then, just because it's going to make the enemies not work until we actually go back through and fix this. We're going to have at least a video or two where we're going back through and making sure everything works like it should after we've made all these refactorings. But I have a little more breaking to do before we get that, and then we can start adding new features. So there we go. There's a Knockback using a tweening node, and it's refactored so that it's only taking care of the knockback. Yeah. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the description down below. I know there's a few other things that are still broken. Leave your comment about what might be broken, and I promise you I'll address that in a future video. I want this to be as good as it possibly can be, so obviously if there's something wrong, please let me know. Yeah, a couple shout outs really quickly here. Peter Milko is a YouTuber who's been doing some game devs on a game that he's working on called Dwarf, which looks kind of interesting. But other than that, he's also been doing some tutorials on GB Studio, Game Boy Studio. It's a program that came out relatively recently that you can get for free that allows you to make actual Game Boy games. I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but it looks pretty awesome, and he has a tutorial series on that, so that's something that you guys might want to go check out. Otherwise, thanks to everybody on my Discord, especially the mods, Faker and Sir Psycho, yeah. And thank you to all my patrons. There's a lot of Patreon-only videos on my Patreon right now that you can check out. As little as $1 a month will get you access to them. There's videos on pushing objects, 2D lighting, and a few other pretty neat things. So go ahead, if you're able to, go ahead and check it out. Although if you're not able to, totally get it. Let's see. Yeah, other than that, I hope everybody has themselves a wonderful day.